Should be streaming. That's good. Alright, last bit is just this slideshow. It says it's excellent connection. Alright, so our studio, we did all that. Alright, so we're creating this R Markdown document. So this was basics of R. And this was the 25th. It's at least where we started with. We're going to do Word document, and then reference docx. And we'll come back. We'll double check this part before we knit. All right, so I then kind of went down and deleted all of this. YouTube is just like, it looks like it's hung up. Oh well. All right. Anyways, creating objects. We're going to start with data points, right? Okay, so data points are single values saved as a variable or name. All right, so don't confuse variable with, variable types and so forth. So like wing length, height, that's a variable. This is just a generic term for a variable, so like an X or a Y or a Z. All right, so the format to do this, to save these values as a single name, is the name and then our object. All right, I'll leave it. So we have that. That's the exact way to do it. So as the example, we're going to create this chunk where we said A is equal to 4, and then B is equal to 8. And this saved the number 4 as A and the number 8 as B. All right, I'm going to run this because once I run it, it then appears up here. All right, so we're here. Recalling the object, or the number, is as easy as typing its name. All right, so if I type A and run it, it outputs 4. So the whole point of this is the utility of everything. We're going to be running this. We're going to save things as objects that we can then reference back as the name of, as whatever we called it. All right, if you had a data frame and you saved it, I know Zoe worked some research, right? You probably saved an Excel spreadsheet with a name of like 30 characters long. Very descriptive so that as you're looking through, which file do I open, you find it, right? All right, how useful would it be to type that entire name every single time just when you pull out a single letter or single number? Not very useful. So what we can do is save things as objects with a much easier and shorter name that we can then recall using that name. So we can perform operations using the name of the object. For example, this is 4 plus 8. All right, so I can do 4 plus 8 and run it, and I get the correct answer, right? I get 12. Or I can do A plus B. And I get the same answer. Because what R does is says, okay, you used A. Is A in my memory? Yes, it is. It's right here in my environment. A is the number 4. And then it says, okay, well, let's find B. Is B in my memory? Yeah, it is. It's in the environment. It's right there. So what R will do is substitute 4 for A, 8 for B, and then perform the operation. 4 plus 8 is 12. Not too bad, right? Questions? All right, so that's our object. Now, what we can do is take these objects, run an operation, and save them the output as another object. So we can save objects in the output of functions into new variables. For example, let's save the sum of A and B. Let's save the sum of A and B as the object Z. I didn't use C, and I used it, and that's for a reason. So what we can do is Z, we're going to create that object. So we're going to create our object Z, and the object that we want to save, or what we want to save in that object is the sum of A plus B. And then just to double check, I'm going to recall the object just to see if I actually have the correct answer. Now we don't have to, because once we run this, Z is going to appear up in the global environment. But sometimes if you're creating a data frame, maybe you just want to see the first part of the data frame after you create it. Or maybe you don't need to see all of the output. Or maybe you want to see more specifics. So we recall the object right away, and when I run my chunk, I get 12. So I run A plus B as 12. It then saves it as the letter Z. When I run the Z, it outputs 12. And these are all on new lines. So each line is meant to be a command that R will run. Questions? All right, next up. Vectors. All right, a vector is a collection of numbers. All right, so now we can have, let's say, even numbers or odd numbers. Or we measured 5 things. Maybe we measured the height of 5 people in this class. We've got 5 different numbers. All right, what we can do is create a vector, a single object that holds all 5 of those numbers. All right, we do that using the combine function, and that is C. So why didn't I do A plus B equals C? Because lowercase c has a function built into R, and that C is called combine. All right, so I'm going to go over here, go back to my R. So I'm going to create a vector. You don't have to hit all those enters. I did just to kind of bring the text up a little bit higher. vector is a collection of items. Usually numbers, but it could be text or characters. Now we're getting into some semantics over what constitutes a vector versus a list and so forth. In R, a vector, R is good enough to where it sees a vector. If everything in it is text, it'll use the appropriate type. It'll change its coding. So if we need to have a list, or we have to pass a function a specific list, R will automatically convert that vector of names to a list of names. So I'm just going to collectively call them vectors to hopefully make it a little bit easier. All right. The numbers are stored as a column if we are going to input them in Excel, in Microsoft Excel. So if we took our measurements, our height measurements, and we're going to input them into Excel, the easy and the best way to input those numbers is to put them into a single column. Why is that? Well, as you'll learn, each column of Excel should represent a variable, a single variable. Our variable in this case is height. All right, so we put all our heights into a column. What we can do then is save that all of those numbers in that one column is going to be as a vector. All right. We create vectors using the combine function, which is C. So C parentheses and then ... which is our list of numbers. We typically create the vector and save it with a memorable name. All right, so we typically create our vector of numbers, and then we save it as a vector, in a memorable name, so that we can always just use the name, and it recalls all of our numbers. All right. All right. So here's one. Fill it. This week's Powerball numbers. We're going to do that. For example, here's how we save a vector of Powerball numbers. As the object, we'll do lotto, is what we'll save it as. So that way we have another example here, in addition to the odd numbers and the even numbers, which we will now create, which we'll then create in Excel. All right, so we want to call the object lotto. So we're going to create the object lotto, and we need a vector of numbers. And to create that vector, I'm going to use the combine. And I'm going to go right back up here, and I'm blocked. Note, the letter C is lowercase. Hopefully that's loud enough for you. All right, so I got my Powerball numbers. I have this moved over so I can see them. So I did lowercase c, parentheses, and then 17, 36, 47, 60, 61, and 15. So I just had that over there so I could see it. There we go. All right, so this took the Powerball numbers, created a vector using the combine function, the lowercase c, saved it as the object lotto, and as a double check, I will type lotto in here just to confirm that it created, and it will recall those numbers. And when I run the chunk, this is what I get. Seem to work? All right, so I'm just going to be a little bit more specific with the output. All right, so the output lists the numbers. These are listed in the order that we placed them in. All right, yep. What's the error? You have the arrow? You have the arrow on there? We make it and then we save it. Did it work? No, still. No space. Unexpected numeric constant in lotto. Oh, you're missing a comma too between 60 and 61. Now that should work. Let's say these errors that you'll get them all throughout the year. I still get them. Gosh, what happened? All right, so the output lists the output in the order in which we put it. So order's going to matter in some cases. We don't care about the order. You don't care about the order. But when we recall it, it gives us that order again. The number in brackets is the count, is the item number. So this starts at 1, which means number 17 is the first item number. All right? Second item number would be 36. This is the third, this is the fourth, this is the fifth, this is the sixth. If we made a vector of, let's say, 100 values, it's going to keep running the numbers until it gets to the end of the line, and then it starts on the next line. And at that start of the next line, it'll have another number in brackets telling you what item number that next value is. All right? So the object has brackets 1, which tells us 17 is the first item in the vector called lotto. All right? So as a second example, let's create a vector of odd numbers and and save the vector as odd numbers. All right, so now we're actually in the presentation itself. We're going to create a vector of odd numbers. We're going to save it as the object odd numbers. So I'm going to create my chunk, odd nums, my arrow. You don't really need the spaces. I like the spaces just because it helps visualize it, see that that's an arrow. So again, odd nums, we're going to do a vector 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. I think I can go up to 11. And do 11. And I'm going to run it. And I can see it when I run my chunk, I get this output in our environment window saying we have this object nums, odd nums. It's a numeric vector. We have 6 objects total, so items 1 through 6, and those are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. You can see in the lotto that we have the ellipses at the end because we also have 6 numbers, but it can only fit 5 on that line. If I enlarge this, it spreads it out. So the ellipses, there's a lot of information that we can gain from the environment window itself. So did everyone get the odd nums? All right, so now, as practice, create a vector of even numbers and call the vector even nums. 2 of these. All right, so go ahead and you do it. And what we'll do is we'll pick this up. Now, we'll pick this up on Friday. Now, what we need to do is save this. We want to save it so we can pick up right where we left off on this document. So what we're going to do is save this. So I'm doing File, Save As. All right. And I know for me, I have to go to the network shares, or to my network drive in order to do this. But I'm going to find a place to save it. So I have a biostats folder. All right. Inside that biostats folder, like you can have biometry folder. You can have a folder with all the presentations that we have there. All right. And then you can have a folder just for R. Okay. So I've got this folder just for R. And then you can create another folder with, let's say, Markdown. Or I'm going to create this folder and say class notes. All right. Once I get in there, I'm going to call this basics of R. Just give it a name, and then I'm going to save it. And if you save it correctly, then the file name should appear on the File tab with our Markdown document. And you'll notice that it's .rmd. All right. We may encounter an error that is associated with that RMD extension. But once you saved it, you have it saved on your network drive, we're good to go. All right. So on Friday, just make sure you have even numbers. We will pick up. I'll show you how I did mine. All right. And then we'll continue creating data frames and stuff. Yep. Drive? We'll just try it there and then you can move it. Go ahead and type in a name. Let's see. There it is. Here's the 2? Yeah. Alright, so we've had 2 errors now that says error saving file, the file name, directory name, or volume label syntax is incorrect. What you need to do is it looks like you're going to have to do what I had to do. When you do File, Save As, instead of clicking like My Documents, go to this PC. This will show you all of the network drives, and then you click on your P drive. And when you click on your P drive, that should show you your documents and everything else. And then click through to get to the folder that you want that way. It worked on Alex's. Yep. All right. What's that? Yeah, don't save it. And when you close out R, it'll ask you if you want to save the session. Don't save it. All right. It's like mine pops up and says save the workspace. No, don't save. I've already saved the script. We'll be able to pick it up.